As we continue our week together in our Wonderful Day in the Lord broadcast, we're working our way through Psalms, and we're at Psalm 62 today, another one of our great Psalms of trust. It's a beautiful one to read. Psalm 62 is talking about the depth of trust that we can have in the Lord, and that the Lord himself is adequate for all of our issues, all of our needs. It says, "My soul waits in silence for God only." I want you to note as we go through, in the New American Standard, the word only is found 6 different times, or alone, 6 different times. He's looking specifically and only to God. My soul waits in silence for God only. From him is my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold. I will not be greatly shaken. How long will you assail a man, that you may murder him, all of you, like a leaning wall, like a tottering fence? They have counseled only to thrust him down from his high position. They delight in falsehood. They bless with their mouth, but inwardly they curse. So like in many of the Psalms, we have a psalmist here who apparently is David, who is struggling with different individuals who want to do him harm. And unfortunately, this is the story of life for many people. Some, of course, struggle more than others, but in our world, we live with sinful people and sinful circumstances, and everybody's not on our side, right? And there are times when true oppression, true pain is brought our way by sometimes people that seem to be our friends, and that's the most hurtful of all betrayal. And we saw that in Psalm 55 earlier this week. But David's facing some of this. But in Psalm 62, he's not really making much of a petition. It's much like Psalm 23. He's just expressing that which is true about him and his relationship with God. But in Psalm 23, there's no indication that there's any issues with anybody or anything. But in Psalm 62, there's definitely a backdrop. He does have problems with some circumstances and some people, and yet his focus is on God and God alone. It's wonderful as we think about some of the problems we face and the way we process them mentally. Just notice what he says about his Lord here. He calls him, verse 2, verse 1, my salvation. And in verse 2, my rock and my salvation and my stronghold. So he's looking to the Lord for protection, for sustenance, for all that he needs to get through the circumstances that he's facing. And he's looking to the Lord alone. He's not looking to his own provisions or his own wit. He's looking to the Lord alone. And he's confident that he's going to find rest in the Lord alone. This is not wishful thinking, because he knows who the Lord is. And you notice it at verse 2, I will not be greatly shaken. Psalm 55 mentioned that same thing twice. Not greatly shaken. Sure, the circumstances that are coming against me are tough. They're rocking my boat, so to speak. But I know, because of whom I believe in, and my trust is in him, in God, my rock, my fortress. Because of that, I know that I will not be shaken. And so his confidence is in God. David has a big God. And he talks about that big God, not a little God, not a God that is trying to get some things done but is not doing so well. His view is of a great God who he has complete confidence in, even in the face of enemies, verses 3 and 4, that might want to destroy him in some way. And so he has confidence in God because of who God is, and he can trust in God alone. He also has confidence because of God's provisions. In verse 5, he says this, my soul, wait in silence for God only, for my hope is in him. He only is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold. I shall not be shaken. On God, my salvation and my glory rests. The rock of my strength, my refuge is in God. Notice how, again, he's repeating pretty much the same thing he just said. He's calling on the Lord as being his stronghold and his rock and his salvation. But now he's applying this theology to his life. He's not only saying that it's true, but also this is how I will live. This is how I want to live. And in verse 8, he now calls on others to take the same steps. Verse 8 says, trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your hearts before him. God is a refuge for us. So David not only living this, he's also proclaiming it. He's sharing it with others. You know, when the Lord has worked in our lives in some special way, and He has really rescued us and delivered us from the various circumstances and the enemies and struggles, we're building a testimony of what God has done in our lives, where we can proclaim the goodness and the power of God, or the bigness and the generosity of our God, and we want others to follow in those footsteps. And so he calls on others to also trust in God as he has done. But David's not done yet. There's more in this psalm that we want to look at tomorrow as we follow up on what we've already seen. So I hope you can join us tomorrow for that.